One. Evolution.org Hardcore 2.0 coming your way. This is episode 107. Today we're talking about pre-exhaustion, intensifying training by Euro Pharma. And this one, look, we're going to talk about Mobster's tip threads on the forum. We're going to go over some of the tips in that excellent thread, and we're going to link the thread as well. We're talking about defining pre-exhaustion. We're talking about how to train more challenging PEDs and steroids to help intensify your workouts and why Euro Pharma is recommended. But first, let's talk about the thread that Mobster put up back in 2018 called Training Tips. You can go to evolution.org, and the link I'm gonna kind of go over the link. It's if you go to evolution.org/forums/threads/training-tips TIPS .60709, and you'll be able to pull that thread up. Also, we'll link it in the show description for those of
Yes.
you who come on the forum and take a look at it there. But Mobster started the thread back in June of 2018, and he got a nice thread going. It was 18 pages total, which is a lot of posts, and it's different tips that he did. So Mobster, why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, there's two, Steve. This one and the intensifier, training to failure, and other ways of upping the intensity. But again, like Steve says, we'll link to those in the podcast description. Listen, guys, there's a certain level of experience. There's even a certain degree of history. A couple of the techniques that we're going to discuss today, I was literally there when they were first described, and I know the names of the people that kind of come up with it. Some of the training stuff, Steve, as we know, and I'm including some of the biggest well-known gurus of bodybuilding, like Joe Weider, Bob Kennedy from Muscle Mag International, Joe from, of course, Muscle and Fitness, Flex Magazine, and so on and so forth. One of the things they kind of, a little bit of self-promotion, Steve, that they would see what people were doing, and then they would come up with this. It was like the Weider Super Blast or Bob Kennedy's Pre-exhaustion. Bodybuilders had already been doing these things, and yet they never had a name for it. And the writer, the author, the promoter, if you like, the publishers of these magazines said, hey, we need to share this information out with the world. And this is the reason, perhaps, why this particular athlete develops a great set of legs, a great set of shoulders, and so on. And some of it is just literally stuff that old timers show you how to do. Okay? So over the history of the iron game, gurus, coaches, buddies down the gym that are showing you little things that you can do, whether it's, a little finger out here or how to get a better contraction in your chest. So that's part of it. That's kind of like number one. Number two, and Steve and I have talked about this, and again, you're listening to this show, so you will not be the guilty party. You see people at the gym on their phones. You see people that come to the gym, barely break a sweat, certainly never get a vein throbbing on their forehead. And I think Steve and I did a show recently. We said they don't really change, Steve. They go to the gym, they work out. Great. That's still better than 90% of the population. Higher, bigger percentage than that. But they're not transforming their bodies. They're not taking it to the next level. And maybe they're happy that way. But if you listen to the show, you want to know the stuff. Now, one of the things, Steve, is one of these things that the big publishers used to do is almost treat some of these techniques, treat some of these ideas as big fucking secrets. They weren't really. It made it sexy. It made for a great promotion. It made for a great headline, but it weren't secrets. They're just stuff that you didn't know today that you can know tomorrow. Now, there's even been scientific stuff done in regards to the speed of the rep, the rest time, rest and recovery, peripheral heart action, Steve, all these different ideas. Literal science studies have actually looked at some of these things. What you're pretty much when you're doing the science and you're looking at athletes outside of bodybuilding, is you're looking to make the time that the person spends training as opposed to playing their sport more efficient. How can we make the workout better so that the athlete is a better athlete? Now, whether that's a pro football player, basketball player, ice hockey, tennis, you name it. What can we do? There's only so many hours a day. There's only so many times between games. There's so many times between tournaments. What can we do to make this person a better athlete, speed up the recovery, make the training more functional, more useful, more efficient, and so on and so forth? So these are elements. Now, from the bodybuilding perspective specifically, not so much the strength stuff. The idea of, for example, and this is a very easy one, Steve, because we will describe specific techniques here, but we do encourage you to go look at some of them. I believe it's close to 200 in that first thread that we mentioned. One would be the amount of time that you spend in the gym. From time to time, someone will come on the forums, and I've even joshed with them and say, I'm in the gym for 2.5 hours and I'm not growing. And I'm thinking, well, the person behind the counter is in for the gym for 8 hours. So fucking what? The time that you're there means nothing. It's the amount of time that you're working, the time under load. And for example, a real simple intensifier, Steve, probably the most basic thing you can do is literally just speed up the workout. If, for example, and again, this shouldn't apply to the listener, let's say that you're doing curls, el numero uno exercise for the younger listeners that want to improve their arms, better set of biceps. And you come to the gym, and whatever the weight is, you warm up and you work up to a working weight. But the time between you putting the bar down and picking it back up again is 2-3 minutes. That's not that bad, but sometimes it's 4 minutes, sometimes it's 5 minutes. And you've picked up the phone, you said hi to a buddy, it's maybe they're having a go and they take their time. So by the time you've got that barbell back in your hand, it's 5 minutes. So a simple technique, and I've seen people do this, including some high-end lifters, is they literally have the timer on their phone counting down, and they got to lift the bar when that timer bleeps. Their heart might still be beating a little faster, the breathing might not be quite back to normal, and the lactic acid, the burn, hasn't quite dissipated, but they're back on it. And what you're doing here, even if you have 1 hour every single workout, but you filled it with more work as you've done more time under load, more work. Now, the German volume thing is a great example here, Steve, where you are literally making sure that you are doing more sets and reps with the German volume approach. If you can do more work in the same amount of time, and this is the science side of it, then you literally made a greater impact on your physique, on the muscle being worked. You have not allowed your muscle to completely rest or completely recover. You've not allowed that to happen, and therefore, arguably, the workout, in this case on your biceps, should be greater. The time under tension should be greater, and so on. So, for example, let me give you another one. And it's very easy for this one to get away from us in terms of the arguments I've seen with this small section of the community, but it's the speed of the rep, Steve. So, for example, as I train as a strength athlete, I am way more concerned with moving the weight from A, the starting point, to B, the finishing point. I don't need to slow it down. So, for example, on bench press, I am concerned with the amount of weight that I can move. And if I can move it quickly, I can exert more power, more speed. Therefore, I become more efficient. Therefore, I lift more weight. That's that science. But from a bodybuilding perspective, it's the alternatives. It's number one, doing more repetition, which is still time under tension. Number two, which is where the super slow protocol, the speed of the rep comes in. If you can take the momentum out of the rep, if there's no cheating, if there's no bouncing off the chest, if I literally decide I'm going to half the speed, I guarantee I'm not going to move the same amount of weight, but at the same time, I'm 100% sure that I'm going to feel way more of an effect in terms of the actual muscle. Describe, Steve, the difference between when you've done a fast rep and a slow rep and how that feels to you for the listener's benefit.
Yeah, and look, you can go to the gym and watch this, or watch the way powerlifters do their workouts and how someone who is, going more for the bodybuilding aspect does their workout. So it's going to be, look, when I was powerlifting, you had to take several minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. I'd actually watch the clock. I take somewhere between 4 and 5 minutes between my sets because I wanted my muscle to be fully recovered so I'd be able to push more weight in the process. I didn't want to exhaust my muscles. And then I basically wait till the end of my workout and I'd switch things up. Then I would start wanting to exhaust my muscles and go more short. So the early part of my workouts, I would take 4 to 5 minutes between sets. But the latter part of my workouts, the end part of my workouts, I'd only be taking 30 or 45 seconds because I wouldn't be concerned about how much weight I was doing. I'd be more concerned about really wearing down that muscle and boosting the endurance. So it was a mix. But obviously, if you focus primarily on powerlifting, as Mobster said, you're going to have a different type of training than someone who's focused more on bodybuilding. So it's important to know your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. And it's also important to not worry about what other people are doing because other people in the gym have different goals. The stuff that Mobster just said, look, some people like just going to the gym just because they want to get away from their family. They want to get out of the house. They want to just vent off steam. They just want to get in a little sweat. Everybody has different, and there's no right or wrong for what
No,
people are trying to do.
but
But
they're
if
not listening. They're not listening to this show, Steve. They don't
yeah,
want these
so
intensifiers.
most of you, listen, show you're trying to improve yourself. That's the whole reason you're using steroids. I mean, why use steroids if you're not trying to improve yourself or at worst trying to maintain what you have? But if you're just going to start using anabolic steroids and using these Euro Pharma products, you're obviously trying to push yourself. So let me give a little pointer that I did in the thread that Mobster put up. And one of the things that I learned and it worked really well for me was when you're first getting into training, or let's say you take years off, maybe you took a year off during COVID, maybe your gym was closed for months, you took a lot of time off, maybe you went through a divorce, maybe you got into, a health problem or an accident or something. It happens a lot to people, and you may take time off. What is the best way to get back? So I'll give you a couple tips. First one, this is great, especially if you're new to weight training, is compound lifts. And I mentioned this in the thread, and this is something that I got into. These were my first workouts. And every pro bodybuilder, they first start out with their basic compound lifts. So I'll give you some examples: bench press, squats, deadlifts, rows, pull ups, dips, push ups. These are all examples of compound lifts, clean and jerks. These are Olympic style types of lifts, and these are the bread and butter to what you need to do. But here's the key: it has to be with correct form. It has to be with correct form because if you're not doing proper form, you're doing more harm than good. But this is a great way to build body memory and build muscle memory over time, in the process. Second tip, let's say you had to take time off for a while and you're just now getting back into it. You're going to be, you're going to tap into that body and muscle memory. It's going to take time. And, the cliche is, let's say you took a year off. It's going to take you about 6 months to get back to where you were before. That's the cliche. If you took 6 months off, it'll take about 3 months. So about half of however long you took off. We see this all the time with athletes in professional sports where they have a severe injury and they're out for the whole season. And then they don't just come back magically. They have to kind of work their way back, and it takes time. If they were out for 6 months or 5 months where they were like unable to even walk because they blew out their ACL, it takes them 2 months, 3 months before they can really start practicing again. So these brutal injuries that these athletes go through, Achilles injuries and ACLs and these other major injuries, usually they'll be out. Well, not usually, they'll always be out for the entire season for a reason. And the reason is because the team wants them to fully recover properly and fully conditioned before they can get back into playing shape. So you won't see them till the next season, you see? And that's what happens. So it's very important with weight training to understand it's the same concept. But here's my tip with that before I bring you back, Monster. Total body workouts when you first come back, and then gradually work your way into your split routine. And here's the reason I say that is because you don't want to come in and go balls to the wall and do a pushing split or a leg split or a pull split. It makes more sense just to do a couple sets of this muscle, a couple sets of this muscle, a couple sets of, and gradually come back that way. This way you're building back your conditioning. And then once your conditioning comes back, then you can go ahead and graduate back to split routines, a 3-day or 4-day or 5-day split.
Yeah.
So that makes more sense because if you come back and boom, you do a big pushing split where you're doing 20 or 25 sets, you're just going to be sore. You're going to injure yourself. You don't have the conditioning yet. It really doesn't make any sense. And the same thing with steroid use. It makes no sense to come back and just hop on gear right away. You want to build back your conditioning first. And this is a slow process, but it will pay off dividends if you do it that way. So those are a couple of my tips right there, Mobster.
Yeah, I mean, look, Steve, but it occurs to me exactly what you've just said, and I agree completely. There's an argument to be made. This is again from the scientific point of view as well. Pretty much anything you're going to do when you first start, or as Steve says, return to training, will work. It's just stimulus. Your body hasn't had it ever or hasn't had it for a long time. And so, literally coming back and doing, say, 6 exercises which work the whole body in an hour and a half, especially if you've never trained before, is horrendously difficult. What happens, and what should happen, of course, is because you've trained for a few months, your body's got used to it and it's developed new muscle strength. It's dropped a little bit of body fat. It's become more functional. And you literally made that happen, which is exactly the reason you went to the fucking gym in the first place. So now you're looking for those intensifiers. Now you're looking for, as Steve says, is the body part routines and so on and so forth. Now you're looking to do some of the things that we're talking about today. And that's exactly right, Steve, whether it's, as I say, as a new trainee or someone who's trained before and returning. I would hate, for example, Steve, you and I could probably find some newbie, literally never been to the gym before, pay them $100 and find the world's worst leg workout ever. And we'd probably put the poor fucker in hospital, certainly feeling like they needed to go to hospital. And that would be silly when just a good set of squats, warming up to close to their body weight and getting them to do, I don't know, 8 repetitions of squats when they've never trained before with their body weight, including the bar, on their shoulders, and having them do ask the grass 8 reps would be way more than enough. They would still be bitching. We do not need to do drop sets. We do not need to get them to do lunges of the car park like Ronnie Coleman or anything like that. There's a bunch of stuff out there that we could show them. But we don't literally, it's like, I think a euphemism would be, you don't have them try every sweetie in a sweet shop. You don't need to. And the same thing with like PEDs that Steve said. We could go online, and we've done podcasts on this, Steve, and literally looked into what's the greatest amount of anabolics anybody's ever taken ever. And I think I've used the example from Muscle Smoke and Mirrors, Randy Roach's book, or very close to that book, where Pete Graminsky was on 10 grams a week, 10,000 milligrams, or the biggest amount of insulin anybody used, or the most amount of growth anybody's used, and take a newbie and go, right, we're going to put you on 10 grams a week. Don't need to. That motherfucker will grow in 30 milligrams a day D-bol, 7 days a week. They'll probably have some of the best gains they've ever had. You do not need to have them on grams and grams and grams. Make them feel toxic, make them feel ill, train them like motherfuckers, and beast them. I mean, it's some sort of scientific experiment. It sounds like fun, but in reality, no need for it. So where these things come in is where you've trained for a little while. That might be 3 months, it might be a couple of years. And then we want you to find things that are going to work for you. So let me explain one, which is specifically mentioned in the title, and we will mention a couple of others just for fun. So it's called the pre-exhaustion technique. And the person that probably promoted this as an idea, as a concept, was Bob Kennedy from Muscle Mag International. I mentioned him earlier on in the show. And in his Muscle Mag International magazine, which has now been and gone, as most of them are, he was able to promote this, I think, even as a training course that you could buy, which supported the magazine. And then later on, obviously, is an article in the magazine itself. And the idea is quite simple. And I'll give you 2 examples of just exactly how this works. So, for example, number one would be, and I said this to Steve in the pre-show, it would be doing lateral raises that specifically work in the lateral head, the head of the deltoids of the 3 muscles. You've got the anterior, which is the muscle at the front, the lateral, which is the muscle on the side, and the posterior, which is the muscle on the back. And on a well-developed set of deltoids with defined, you will see all 3 heads. Sometimes you might even see striations and veins on them and everything, Steve. And that fucking thing should look like a pair of basketballs that someone's rammed onto each of your shoulders. So the lateral head is the head that's on the side. And you literally do lateral raises, moderate to high repetitions. Let's say, for example, and just this is literally an example, guys. You've got your own rep ranges that you might like. You can play around with different rep ranges over time. Again, just as a different techniques for growing. But let's go light weights, high repetitions. We're just going to get a real nice burn in the lateral head. Maybe it takes 2-3 sets of working up to weights. And it doesn't even need to be that heavy, Steve, when we're doing these high repetitions. What you're looking to is specifically isolate or get the sensation of isolating the lateral head of the deltoid. And you've worked up, let's say, Steve, it doesn't have to be crazy heavy. It might be 20, 30 pounds. Strict finger up so that you're almost like doing the thing as a Larry Scott trick, Steve, of like pouring water out of a kettle or a teapot. And that's kind of a way of getting the shoulder just to roll forward slightly. So you're again isolating the delt even more. Don't be flapping your arms up and down like a bird taking off, but slow, nice solid tempo. And just don't take tension off the muscle. So at the bottom, you're not relaxing your arm against the side. And at the top, you're not going so far past the range of tension that you're almost training your trap muscles and you're taking tension off your delt. The muscles should stay the whole time under tension. So that's the isolating. That's the pre-exhaustion part of the muscle. You're really trying to fuck up in the nicest possible way that lateral head. Then immediately, as long as it takes you to put the dumbbells down and walk over to either a seated press machine or similar, might be one of those hammer type machines, isolateral type machines with the handles where you either face in or face out and you press, or a seated barbell or even dumbbell pressing, some sort of overhead press. But again, strictly done, moderate weights. And again, almost, Steve, although you're now working all of the delts, all three heads, and to a lesser degree, the top to your pecs and your triceps at the same time. You're even squeezing hard to grip under the handles or the barbell or the dumbbell, whatever you're using, and pressing the fuck out of your shoulders. Now, that lateral head has already been pre-exhausted. The phrase we like to use here is they are on fire. But because you didn't work the front head or the rear head, the anterior or the posterior part of the delt, because you really not worked the tricep, and to a far, far lesser degree, you've barely touched upon the trap muscle, these other muscles, these other heads of the delts, and they're coming into play. They weren't tired. They're still fresh. The lateral head is tired. Now you're working like a motherfucker. The lateral head is burning. Proper lactic acid. Oh my God, I'm breaking muscle fibers down. Proper, oh Jesus Christ, I can feel my shirt getting tight. I've done 20 reps on these exercises from time to time, Steve, especially when I was coming back from my frozen shoulder. And I could feel my fucking shoulders filling out the t-shirt. And that's just one. Another one, which is an absolute classic here, and I'll let Steve come in as well on one of these. Say, for example, Steve, give them the audience one on chest. I'll do one more for legs, which is doing leg extensions, strictly controlled, squeezing the quads at the top of the movement, taking the momentum out of the movement. Again, moderate weight, moderate reps, 12 to 15 repetitions here. Maybe pointing your toes in, maybe pointing your toes out. You've got all these different variations, but the key here is squeezing the fuck out of your quads with a controlled motion from the bottom stretch position to the full out, legs in front, contracted, even making sure that you're braced hard into the machine. And then immediately, having done that last work set, when your quads are on fire, either the squat or some squat variation or the leg press or leg press variation, isolateral, both at the same time, high up on the foot plate, low on the foot plate, even a hack squat, Steve. Any of these things, which is a bigger, much more compound type movement, as opposed to isolating like the leg extension, and then doing, for example, 3 sets of 20, again, with a little bit less weight than you would normally do because it's not power, it's not strength, it's pure muscle, and you've already pre-exhausted the quads here, and fucking doing 3 work sets on that. You can even do less volume, less sets, Steve. But the key here is that contraction, squeezing the fuck out of your quads, really isolating those muscles on the front of your thighs, and then allowing the big muscles underneath, the gluteus muscle, your hamstrings, the muscles on the sides of your thighs to come into play and back the fuck up those pre-exhausted quad muscles. Given the style, or Steve, perhaps of a chest exercise like you and I talked about in the pre-show, and maybe a back movement where they could pre-exhaust as well, just as an example for the listeners.
So one of the things you can do on chest day, and this is something you want to do maybe once every 4 splits, maybe even every 6 splits. And you're going to get hard as hell. You're going to get a crazy burn in your chest because a lot of times we don't get that when we're doing, bench press. A lot of times people, they're after the ego thing. They're after let me move as much weight as I can. And I have to kind of wonder, are these people who they go in there and they do heavy weight. Are they really exhausting their chest? No, they're not, but they're getting stronger. But if you really want to exhaust, which is what we're going to talk about, how about doing 10 sets of 10 reps? So 10 by 10s. And this is going to be a situation where you're going to have to do a moderate amount of weight. You may have to get a spotter. or someone to, someone there. If and you really want it to be challenging. You want that 10th rep to be challenging, even on that first set. But you want to, take some time between your sets as well, but you don't want to take too much time. So maybe, 1.5 minute between sets, maybe pushing it to 2 minutes at the most. And the idea here is you're going to notice by the time you get to the sixth, seventh, eighth set, you'll start notice your chest is becoming so exhausted and so hard in the process. And then by the 10th set, it's going to be crazy. So you want to make sure you're engaging your chest when you do these. You're not overcompensating and using your shoulders to kind of push that weight up. When it comes to the back, rows. One of the tips I can recommend would be, how about straight arm pulls? And that would be, I want you to imagine, a pulley. You're on the pulley rack, and you're doing tricep push downs. Okay, but instead of doing tricep push downs, grab the rope in front of you or grab the bar in front of you, and just do one sweep motion, going from where your arms are forward to your arms are behind your back, like you're getting arrested, kind of thing. And then when you go back up, really, don't let don't let gravity bring your arms back up. You fight gravity on the way back up. And then put your arms back straight out again, and then do that same sweeping motion. And that's an exercise a lot of people don't do, but it's a wonderful way to really work your back. And here's the key to it. Imagine there's a penny stuck in the middle of your back or the top part of your back, and you're squeezing that penny. That's what you want to do. This will prevent you from cheating. You don't want to use your arms. You want to engage that back. And I've worked out with some clients who've, they tend to use their arms more because that's what you do. Like when you hold a baby, you use your arms more. You don't really use your back. But on this exercise, what I usually tell them is I'll even tape a penny to their back, to that little opening on your upper back or middle back. And I'll say, okay, I'm taping this penny. I want you to squeeze this penny. That's all I want you to do is squeeze the penny when you're doing that sweeping motion. And they're like, wow. They're like, Steve, the next day, my back was sore, and I've never experienced such a sore back before. And the reason they haven't is because they've been ignoring their back and they don't really train their back properly. So when you use that little technique, you can get some really good pre-exhaustion when you're doing that. And of course, pull-ups. If we're going to talk about back, we have to include pull-ups. So you want to work your way up to the point. Now, a lot of you, I see these in the log. A lot of people, they'll do pull-ups and they'll have assisted, they'll do on the assisted machine where they get an assistance. You can set the weight where it assists you on the pull-ups. You want to eventually get to the point where you don't need any assistance. You're just able to rip off 10 pull-ups, no problem, then 15, then 20. I used to train with a guy who was in his 60s, and this guy could rip off 50 pull-ups. Okay. He was like in the Vietnam War and shit. He was like this former, Green Beret or something, like really high up there in the military. But this guy has been training for years. I mean, that was his life. He's able to rip off, even in the 60s, Mobster, 50 pull-ups, no problem. I mean, the hell of an athlete. And that's where your back strength is. So work your way up to that point and then go further and then do weighted pull-ups. Now, once you can strap, a lot of gyms, they have belts. You can strap weights to yourself and you can do weighted pull-ups. Now you're forcing some amazing back improvements. And you're forcing your back to get exhausted when you do that. So those are some tips. Yeah.
Let me give you a couple more. And this is more to do with learning how to contract your muscle. And that kind of sounds obvious to some people. If you ever say to a kid, make a muscle, they nearly always, it's either going to be, I would say, front double bicep sleeve or at least one arm flexed. Or maybe they've seen something on wrestling when they do a most muscular, right? But it's back in the day for the longest time, 50, 60 years, it was always shooting up and doing a single or front double bicep. And they literally and you go, oh, look at that little muscle, and you give it a poke and whatever else, right? So we kind of know that there are certain ways, and we've seen magazines, we've seen online, we've seen the competitions, we see the live streams, so we know that bodybuilders do certain particular poses, right? But the thing here is specifically for training purposes is learning how to contract the muscles. So there's an argument to be made, and this is actually one of the techniques that sometimes a coach or a PT or even a training buddy will help you with, in terms of people don't necessarily know because they've never experienced it before. For example, let's say dumbbell flyers here, Steve. How is their chest supposed to feel when it's being contracted? How do I know when I'm moving whatever chest exercise from A to B, how to make my chest feel the way it's supposed to? And therefore, I know that I've isolated my chest. I know I'm working the pectoral muscles and so on and so forth. And this is a very simple technique, and it's to do with neural feedback, which sounds a bit scientific, because kind of is, but when I tell you what they're doing, it sounds incredibly stupid. And you can even do this for yourself. And I'll use chest flyers with a dumbbell or pec deck and a bicep exercise, one arm. So let's go with the dumbbell flyers. It's a flat incline on a machine with dumbbells, some fly kind of machine, pec decker, etc. Right? And I can take my two fingers and spread I'm doing it now with my right hand as I talk to you on this podcast, and put my index finger and my middle finger into a V type, V for victory type sort of situation, with the rest of my fingers folded away. And you are on the pec deck machine, and I'm a coach and or training buddy or whatever, and I put one finger onto the left pec and one finger onto the right pec. So it's kind of in the middle. My hands ain't that big. I'm not going to cover the whole of both your chest muscles. And what I want you to do as you bring the arms, sweep the arms in, regardless of the fly type movement that you're doing, is squeeze the muscle against my two fingers, both the left pec and the right pec. If it's a woman, you might want to do these things with someone else. You might want to get a female PT. You might even sort of try just to learn it yourself by having something in that area that's touching the flesh for yourself. It might be, for example, that you're leaning into some kind of pad and doing a different kind of movement, but whatever. The trick here is to press against those fingers, press against whatever it is that you're touching your chest to, and to flex your muscles against that opposition. And the trick of that's basically saying this is the area that I should be contracting the most. So you're not waving your arms around and getting a front lateral anterior deltoid movement going. You're not doing something with your triceps or your biceps or whatever. So you're literally making the area that's being worked, i.e. the pectoral muscles, actually do the work, and you're forcing a contraction against those fingers, against that object, whatever it happens to be, with permission, obviously. And that is encouraging you to literally, even better, Steve, if you can actually focus down on the two fingers and really just try to squeeze in the area. So then the technique might become you're doing some sort of incline fly type movement, and you're trying to fill in the area between the middle of the pec and the top of the pec. That literally the area that's around your clavicles, underneath your chin, etc., etc. And so therefore the fingers or whatever moves up to that particular area, and you are now trying to force the muscle to flex or contract against the two fingers in that specific part of the chest. Same thing with the bottom of the chest, same thing with the middle. It might be something where we're doing certain stretching exercises, and I want to feel the muscle stretching on where the pec ties into the delt. I might want my front deltoid, for example, muscle to do that. And you can do that with back. You can do it with quads on the leg extension type movement that we talked about earlier on, just literally pressing your finger and flexing your own leg against your own finger. If you did a bicep type movement, doing one arm instead of two arms, so dumbbells to the barbell, whether it's a machine or a dumbbell, and literally placing the finger of your arm that's not being worked on the bicep that is being worked, and deliberately flexing your bicep as you do the movement against your own finger, against your own resistance. And as I said, there's a bunch of ways that you can do this. You could do, for example, Steve, normally wear relatively loose or comfortable clothing, deliberately wear tight clothing, that as you pump up, that as you train, becomes tighter and tighter and tighter. And as you are squeezing the muscle, it's gone from relatively loose in the non-contracted position to kind of tight against the cuff or the sleeve or the leg of the trouser or whatever in that particular position. It's the reason why from time to time, not only because it was visual, but also perhaps because it made them feel comfortable, you would see certain bodybuilders back in the day, Steve, wearing certain clothing on certain days. So shorts on leg days, cut-offs for calf days, a weird looking kind of vest for chest days where the rest of them's covered up. They've even got a hood on. Their arms are covered, their legs are covered, their abdominals are covered, their back's covered, but their chest was exposed. And literally, the visual thing there is that they want to see the muscle fibers contracting in the mirror while they're training. So that particular thing, whether it's with the fingers or using a mirror, getting the body to do it, resting against an object as you do it yourself, etc., etc., etc. All of these kind of things is enabling you to learn where the contraction needs to be, where it's supposed to be focused on your body. Again, it's like a random person off the street, Steve, or someone who's new to training. It's almost impossible for them to sort of understand, for example, bicep curls, that they are working the bicep. They get the movement. I know that I curl it from here to here. How should my arms feel? What do you mean by contracting my bicep? And specifically, what's the difference between a normal curl and a concentration curl? And some of these things, whether it's turning your hand in or adjusting your body and so on. I mean, silly, let me give you another example, Steve. And I actually saw a fellow at the gym doing this today, and I nearly went and said something. And I thought, no, crack on with what you're doing. You've got a show to do, Steve. You haven't got time to be showing people's energy. As an example, when I do this exercise, and my gym owning buddy is very, very good, it's the seated isolateral row, kind of mid position, Steve, where you're pulling it in just to the lower part of your rib cage. And the trick here is to get both those elbows back. Now, you can do one arm at a time or two arms at a time. But one of the tricks, for example, is bringing your chest up and almost rounding your back. So there's now a curve from behind, but it's inward, not outward. What you see a lot of people doing is hauling the weight in and are kind of hunched over. So it's outward curve and they're not getting a contraction. If they sat up, put their sternum against the pad, pull their chest higher, and almost kind of, and I'm doing it as I talk to the listener, start to pull my shoulder blades back and then go from the stretch position to the contracted position. And then even better, Steve, holding the muscle in the contracted position and squeezing those fibers where they're attaching to the rib cage. And I've seen my gym buddy do this, especially when he's in competition prep, and he's a great example of getting loads out of movement. Now, I'm, of course, an A to B, as much weight as I can handle kind of guy, but that helps with stimulus. I'll still get muscle growth from it because I'm using so much goddamn weight. But if I was a bodybuilder, it would be 80%, not 100%, and my form would be a lot better, and I'd be working on that contraction. I'm almost trying to get the bunches of muscle fibers that attach to each of my rib cage muscles and the intercostals and the muscles from behind it, and where they're literally attaching to the ribs and tying in there, Steve. And I've got to imagine that I'm on stage and I'm just bringing my elbows back into that contracted position, showing you my spinal erectors, showing you those muscle fibers popping under my skin before I pop into a rear lat spread. And that's kind of key with that exercise. It doesn't matter, for example, if it's one-arm dumbbell rows or not barbell rows or T-bar rows or seated there or even on the lateral pull down. The second biggest set of muscles in your body are your back muscles. You can't see what you're doing. So you've got to feel what you're doing. And it's these little tricks, these little techniques that enable you to get the most that you possibly can out of these kind of movements, Steve. I want to give the listeners one more before we start talking about PEDs that are going to help you deal with these intense workouts. So another one, Steve, I'm not sure you're familiar with this, is called 21s. And again, you can do this for certain muscles, but the classic is biceps again. And the trick here is thus. It's 7 plus 7 plus 7. And it's 7 let's take the dumbbell curl for biceps. Perfect technique, squeezing the muscle like we just described. But you go from the middle position to the top position, 7 reps. Then you lower it all the way down to the bottom and you go from the bottom position to the middle position for 7 repetitions. And this is all without rest. This is not a set of 7, set of 7, 7. It's the whole goddamn set. It's one thing after another. So 7 reps in the upper part, 7 reps on the lower part, and then 7 complete repetitions all the way from the bottom to all the way to the top of the movement. That's from complete stretch to full contraction. So half stretch, contraction, full stretch, mid contraction, and then full stretch, full contraction. There's 21 repetitions overall. In and of itself is more than most people would do for biceps. It's quite a high volume for a relatively small muscle, but you are focusing on the half contraction, full contraction. Then you're focusing on that full stretch to open the arm up, stretch the fascia out to a subset. And again, you're only taking it to the middle portion of the movement, which enables you to take the momentum out. You have to stop just when it starts to get interesting. And then because you've already fucked your bicep up, you then do those last 7 reps. So talk about 21s for arms or triceps, Steve, as a sort of intensifying technique for the listener, where you've done one yourself.
Yeah, then there's a lot of social media. You see a lot of the videos, and guys are doing these types of workouts. And what's nice about them is you get the pumps going. And we're going to talk about the steroids in a second that are really good for pumps. But if you like to really get the vascularity going, the pumps, leave the
Yeah.
gym feeling like $1 million or you can't even drive. I always like to, when I go to leave the gym, wear one of those cutoff shirts, after a bicep day. And I'll make sure I really exhaust my biceps a lot, and then I'll leave the gym and go to the grocery store, try to score some ass, with my arms popping out. And you
Yeah,
know, it,
especially
it
back in the day.
and that's what that's how it works. And one of the things that is, you'll see a lot of these YouTubers and stuff. Nobody wants to see a boring workout, so you'll see them doing a
No,
lot of these
it
types
doesn't
of.
sell, Steve. It doesn't get traction.
So they'll do these workouts, and so you can really like see an example with Rich Piana used to do the famous arm workout.
15-minute thing, yeah, for night time. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there's all kinds of little techniques, but look, at the end of the day, technique, 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 proper training. That's going to
Yes.
be the key. And that's what you want to do if you really want to take things to the next level and you really want to do what we're talking about, which is the pre-exhaustion and intensifying your training. And look, at the end of the day, as Mobster always says, results, results, results. If you're getting results,
Yes.
you're
That's
doing
all that
something right.
matters.
If you're
Nothing else
not,
matters.
don't be afraid to change stuff up. And then obviously, don't be afraid either to use Euro Pharma products. And look, we've got, I want to talk about 4 different orals and 4 different
Yep,
injectables
yep,
from
yep.
Euro Pharma that, and we have a list here. And, look, at the end of the day, these, really any anabolic steroid will help you here, but we're going to just pick 4 specifically and maybe, some bonuses as well. So why don't we start with some Euro Pharmacies orals, Mobster? Why don't you start with your favorite Dianabol? Talk about how to use it and what it can do for you in this type of training.
Listen, Steve, Diana Bowl would be the absolute classic, and it's probably almost certainly been, especially for a long period of time, maybe not recently, the first steroid anybody ever uses. And Steve and I have talked about this on a bunch of shows before about what we call the feel good pump. Okay. So if you've never used any steroid, never mind an oral steroid, and you get Debo and you use it, as I said earlier in the show, Steve, with 30 milligrams, 7 days a week for 4 to 8 weeks, your experience should be, oh my God, what a fucking pump. And it shouldn't be evil, oh my God, I'm in bits. The lactic acid is destroying me kind of pump, which can come with Anavar, which we'll touch upon, but borderline pleasurable. If you've never had it before, that sensation of pumping up and then specifically pumping up on Debo goes from, that's nice, I've never had that before. It's not quite coming like Arnold described, but certainly nice. And you know that you're working it. And then Debo is going to take it to the next level. For some people, especially if you're well hydrated when perhaps you aren't normally, carved up when perhaps you aren't normally, it can be bordering on what people have described as skin splitting. That's a slight example, but it can certainly, oh my God, my arms are full as fuck. And that's actually, ironically, one of Rich Piana's, the late Rich Piana's phrases. But that sensation, that the way that you feel, and again, Euro Pharmacies Debo, absolutely great for that. I've got Euro Pharmacies Debo here, my little stash. That idea, that sensation, that feeling full to the fucking brim, the blood, extra oxygen, more red blood cells, etc., 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 going on, and of course, it's made you that little bit stronger, and it's allowing you to saturate the muscle fibers, the muscle cells with a little bit more water. We know that there's a bit of water retention, but this is the kind that we want versus, say, for example, feeling bloated. On the Dynabol, real simple, bloated, blown up the fuck. Oh my God. If you are lean, Stephen Debo, and you see this from time to time, and it can be in amateurs, never mind professional bodybuilders, these people look like, I think the euphemism that's been used, Steve, in the media, specifically magazine writers back in the day, not even bodybuilder magazines, like someone stuck an air hose up their ass, or specifically, Steve, into your arms. You've literally put a little bit of air into the tricep, a little bit of air into the bicep. There's veins going on. There's a kind of 3D look, and you feel that. Even as someone that weighs 180 pounds instead of 270 pounds, fuck me, my arms are full of blood. They're pumped like a motherfucker. Some people, and you've got to love it, this Steve, when we've seen this with newbies, the idea, can I have something where I feel like that all day long? Unfortunately, the answer is no. That's not how the body works. There are certain things you can do to maintain it for a little while, certainly to enhance it in terms of, for example, arginine and some of the pump type products. But the idea that you could walk around feeling pumped all day, unfortunately, is not how the body works. But you can certainly, for example, if it was a half-hour arm workout, 15-minute bicep part of that arm workout, that's only half an hour, but you can feel the kind of sensation of having a pump for up to 2 hours, I would argue there, Steve. And the idea of you feeling like that is that you are definitely, you thicken up the muscle fibers, you've definitely made something happen. You're even stretching the fascia around the membrane, the membrane, which is the fascia, around the muscle fibers, and therefore you are creating an environment, nutritionally, with recovery, etc., where you think, you feel like you're going to grow. Your arms are going to blow up.
Yeah, and all these orals, we're going to talk about Dianabol, Anadrol, Anavar, Winstrol. These are the four. Why don't you go on to the next one, Mobster? Talk a little bit. We'll talk about, did you talk about Dianabol, how to use it, how long to use it?
Dianabol, yes, 4 to 8 weeks, 30 milligrams a day, 50 milligrams max. Let's talk about Anadrol. 50 milligrams is a great dose. Again, 4 to 8 weeks. People talk about less time. Four is probably where I would go now. Arguably, when I first started, in terms of my response, etc., to steroids, I would have gone 8 weeks multiple times. But people tend towards orals for shorter periods of time. And there's a huge argument, which you and I have had back and forth over, in terms of the oral versus injectable argument. I don't believe it, and I've said why. So moderate amounts of Anadrol, moderate amounts of any of the orals, use sensibly, enhancing everything else that you're doing, to my mind, and the reasons I previously stated work. So here, 50 milligrams, 4 to 8 weeks, Anadrol. Listen, if you respond, and I know for a fact that there are people out there that have had amazing fucking responses. Unfortunately, I never had. I've always responded better to Debo. But if you do respond to Anadrol, there's an argument to be made, and I'll bring Steve in for this. Some of the people that do well on the Anadrol, Steve, fucking love it. And I've seen numbers, and I think you talked about this as well, where I've seen people talk about, if I've done 10 pounds and kept 6 pounds on Debo, I've heard of people going 21 pounds, 22 pounds on Anadrol. So talk briefly about the way that you'd feel doing some of these intensifiers and using Anadrol from your experience.
Yeah, and all these orals that we're talking about, and all these provide pumps different ways. The Dianabol causes a specific pump. Anadrol causes a specific pump. Anavar, Winstrol. Anavar pumps are very unique. All these have different unique pumps, and the Anavar pumps, those, it's a moderate effect, where you get that pump. For me, it's like lower back pump, especially on back day with the Anavar if I'm doing pull-ups or something. So with Anavar, I would push on the Anavar anywhere from 25 to 50 milligrams a day if you're a male. For females, 5 to 10 milligrams a day. And it's a great one for high volume. The difference between Anavar and Winstrol versus Dianabol is the aromatization, because Anavar and Winstrol will not aromatize, but Dianabol will. Now, Anadrol does not aromatize, but it does bind to estrogen receptors. So with the Debol and Anadrol, you'll get more of a wet look, and Anavar and Winstrol, you're going to get more of a dry look. So with Winstrol, the Winnie pumps, they're called Winnie pumps. These are legendary. And the Winnie pumps, Winnie will dry you out like you wouldn't believe. Now, it's very important to realize with Winstrol is the drying out really dries out your joints. It feels like when you're moving your joints around, it's like a rubber band is in there, and you're trying to flex that rubber band. So even if you're not prone to joint problems like I am, I'm not really prone to joint issues. I don't have long, lanky limbs, so that's definitely an advantage. But even with me, I was dealing with the joint issue. So you want to make sure when you're using Winstrol and you're going really, really intense, when you're doing the intense training we talked about, that you don't use anti-inflammatories, and you don't use any of these like aspirins or Tylenol or something while you're on Winstrol, because what's going to end up happening is it's going to give you the impression that nothing is happening to your joints when it is. So you're going to be damaging your joints in the process. So it's very, very important to make sure you're getting in your good fats. and making sure you're not overdoing it on the Winstrol. That's your enemy with the Winstrol, is going too long on it, drying out your joints. So with Winstrol, anywhere from 25 to 50 milligrams a day with Winstrol is really, really good. But it's a
I
really
think,
good
Steve,
one.
with Winstrol, you get that vascularity that we've seen. And as Steve said, the dry muscle. But specifically, I think people talk about the vascularity. The other three steroids that we've already mentioned, you get pumped. You can have almost uncomfortable pumps on VAR. But Winstrol, if it dries you out, if your diet's good, everything else is good. You'll get the veins. This is where you will see sometimes people almost lacking separation. Top professional bodybuilders, again, it can be slightly confusing for people when they say, my God, look at his muscles. They're all like covered in veins and stuff. How come he's not winning the competition? It's because there's no separation in the muscles. But that vascularity, that appearance that Winstrol can give you can blow people's fucking minds. And I've seen top professionals that have never really won a competition do incredibly well in the sport just because they were vascular as fuck. And I guarantee Winstrol was in their stack somewhere, Steve. Let me give you an example of an an injectable steroid now from Euro Pharmacies. And I'm actually going to throw Tren under the bus here, Steve, because one of the things you do with these intensifying training techniques is, and I'm going to use this euphemism, and I think Tren really applies this, Steve, as you are, and I like this phrase, there's two phrases maybe. One is going into battle, and the other one is going to war. And what I mean by that, I mean, when you get to the gym, you're going to use these intensifier techniques to put it crudely, Steve, fuck yourself up, but in a good way. You really want that contraction. You really want that muscle flexed. You really want that muscle pumped. You are you're serious about your shit. And if there's an argument to be made when it comes to any of those kind of thought processes, any of those ideologies, Steve, Tren, as an example, and Euro Pharmacies, I'm looking at two of their examples right here, Steve, trenbolone acetate and trenbolone enanthate, just in the 15 mil vials. There are other options in the 10 mil vials. The idea that you're going to war with Tren, and I'll let Steve jump in for this one as well, as an absolute, because it's one of those save it until you need to use it kind of PEDs. But once you use it, there's almost an argument about it's like you're not really going to get that kind of sensation going back to other PEDs. The Tren will be in the stack somewhere. The only thing you might argue over, Steve, is the amount. So, for example, if I was using Tren with just the testosterone, and let's look at testosterone enanthate and doing a trenbolone enanthate, I would probably run them both in the area of 2 to 300 milligrams, perhaps the testosterone a little bit higher, maybe 400 milligrams. And I would try to keep the trenbolone enanthate down to around 200 milligrams for a non-experienced user versus someone that's got a bit of experience. And again, what am I looking at is, Steve, I might run the testosterone a little bit longer, say, for example, 8 to 12 weeks, and I might actually run the trenbolone enanthate a little bit less, so 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know if I'd want to run Tren for 12 weeks as an example. But the idea that you're going to war, and especially if you're using intensifying techniques, explain to the listener when you've used Tren, you're kind of, I'm going to go into the gym and fuck shit up, because I know you've done this for yourself.
Yeah, so that's where the Tren is. Look, Tren can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And one of the things that it's going to be your worst enemy on is your endurance and your cardio. So you're not going to have that. It's also going to cause a lot of side effects, and it's going to mess things up. It's going to throw off your sleep. We have a guy doing a log right now. I just saw his log last night, and he's on Tren. He's complaining. He's like, I can't sleep unless I'm taking all these hard sleep medications. And, I tell
Yeah, I saw that.
people,
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
take these hard sleeping medications and which force you to sleep, you're actually not getting good quality sleep. You're
No,
actually hurting your
no.
sleep. You're not getting into the so Trend can be your best friend or something, but when it comes to aggression and intensity, there's so many stories of people who feel absolutely horrible on Trend. They feel fatigued on Trend, but then when they
But
walk,
others feel like beasts. Other feels like gods.
well,
I've
that's what I'm
literally heard people
saying.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah, my point is when you walk into the gym, they feel like a beast. But when they're outside the gym, they don't feel like a beast. So it's one of those situations where it's you're going to war when you're on Trend. You're going to war, and then when you're outside the gym, you feel like shit. You feel dehydrated. You feel fatigued. You feel no energy. You're tired. So it's one of those that can be your best friend. We're saying so. This is one you want to save for your really really experienced. So dosage on Trend, I'd recommend 200 to 350, maybe 400 milligrams, and then go 8 weeks or less on Trend. I wouldn't push it past 8 weeks. What's another one, Mobster?
Oh, look, I'll talk about one of my favorite stacks here, guys, and multiple times. But here's the kind of sensation you get as a bodybuilder versus me as a strength athlete. So one of my favorite stacks is Sustanon 50, which of course they do 10 mil and 50 mil vials on, and Nandrolone Decanate, which again they do 15 mil and 10 mil vials of. And never run these too crazy high. My most recent cycle with Proviron totaled 1,050 milligrams, running a single meal of each once every 5 days. So 500 milligrams every 5 days works out to about 700 milligrams a week, plus the Proviron tipping me over to the 1,050 milligrams in total. There or thereabouts. And that works perfectly for me. And what I get from it as a strength athlete is I'm still going to get the same as I would with bodybuilder. And that is me filling out and bulking up. That gives me greater leverage for pressing and benching and squatting and so on and so forth. And to a slightly lesser degree, an enhancement of my overall strength in terms of muscle fiber contraction and so on and so forth. But as a bodybuilder, Steve, I would argue this, and we've talked about this as a bulker for bodybuilders, not just for me as a strength athlete. That sensation of, again, as I described with the D-bowl, being full as fuck, the size of a house, when literally the muscles are sitting differently in terms of, especially if you're a lighter guy, again, someone weighing between 160 and 180, and you blow the fuck up, whether it's Anadrol or on a Susteca cycle to 200 pounds, your arms sit differently on your tricep rests differently on your lat muscles. Now, if you go to the gym and use some of these intensifier techniques, Steve, and a similar sort of setup to what I've done, maybe a little bit less, maybe every 6 days, because both of these arguably a decent length of time, or you can moderate the amount of, I would say probably combined total, Steve, for most users, especially when they're starting out, would be 300 milligrams of this each, which is 600 milligrams, maybe up to 800 milligrams combined total over the week. And I would prefer to do it over 2 injections, so Monday to Thursday or Monday and Friday, as I've been doing. But the 600 to 800 milligrams, that's 400 milligrams of each total per week, dose as you want to get to that kind of number for 8 to 12 weeks. That sensation of feeling full, that sensation of being stronger, and then as a bodybuilder, working with the volume approach compared to me as a strength athlete, and specifically using intensifiers for contraction. I'm going to say, Steve, as a classic bulker with the contraction, you will love being big. You will love how you feel. Let's talk about briefly, Steve, Euro Pharmacies in and of themselves, because we're talking about here the 10 mil vial, the 15 mil vial options, peptides, SARMs, growth hormone. Steve and I, between us, have probably tried pretty much every single one of the top. I don't think I've tried all the peptides, Steve, although I do have a couple here, but I've certainly tried most of their orals, certainly tried probably nearly all their injectables, and I use a couple of their SARMs on a regular basis. And I love the simple fact that I get what I pay for. I get what I'm supposed to get. We know that these products are tested. I use the phrase on the forums in my signature line, tried, tested, and trusted. Tried by me, tested by members on the forum, trusted because I haven't seen a single person turn around and say on the forum, and we do get this occasionally for other approved sources, and we have to go in and look at what's being said. I don't think I've seen a single person turn around and say that I've tried these Euro Pharmacies products from one of our best resellers or 2 resellers that we can think of, and never had an issue with that. What do you think about using their products, Steve, for the listeners' benefit, especially for these intensified techniques?
Yeah, and you want, whenever you're using a brand, you want great customer service, you want great reps on the forum, you want great shipping, you want great products, great prices. So Euro Pharma has all that. That's why they're so popular. And if you come on the forum, you can find out where to get them. And they are a
Yep.
really, really good brand for sure. And I highly recommend them. They're definitely a top 3 brand in the world. And they definitely have been around a long time and provide good quality gear. So all these steroids we talked about
Yeah,
and
we
more.
talking about somewhere between 17 and yeah, 17 to 20 years, I believe. Steve is coming up on 20 years, I think. They're doing sales right now via one of their resellers, so check them out. We've got 2 big name resellers that offer their product quite often with deals, which you can even vote on, or as I say, specific weekend grabs or discounts via Bitcoin or whatever else to use their products, to obtain their products. Go on other forums, check out Euro Pharmacy's reputation all over the Iron Game net and see what people are saying about their particular product. That's to me a sign of a great source where you're not talking about a company that sponsors a show or forum or whatever else, but is recommended on other forums and in other places. Then come back to Evolutionary and get the gold from our mouths and listen to these shows and check out what we're saying. I use the phrase, just to finish on this, Steve. If people ask, I'll say, listen, I've used multiple brands, different sources, different approved sources, different products from different companies from time to time. But my staple, my go-to every single day, whether it's in the form of a SARM or when I'm on cycle, or even from my current TRT, as I'm doing right now, would be Euro Pharmacies products all the goddamn time. Please note, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It is our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment apply.